Hi, I'm Randy. This is the Literate Texan. This video is about a book unhaul that I tried to do, but it's about the books that I couldn't sell. I live in Denton, Texas. We've got one of the best used bookstores in the country here. It's called Recycled Books and Records. They have a selection of over 1 million books, I think, maybe 1.5 million, something like that. It's in the old Opera House down on the square. But one of the things that they're famous for or infamous for is how selective they are when it comes to buying books. And so I periodically cull through my collection, just like a lot of book owners do, to get rid of stuff that I'm never going to read again, or stuff that I thought I was going to read at one time, but have decided that I'm not going to read. You know, take them down there and sell them for store credit and pick up something that I'm more likely to actually read. And, you know, what you do is you take them to the buying counter, and they'll look at them, they'll decide which ones they want and which ones they don't want, and then they'll make you an offer. And what they'll do with the books that they don't want is they'll set them aside into the we don't want these pile. And so I was surprised at the books that they decided they didn't want. I wanted to show them off in a video. So this is sort of a book unhaul video. This is more of a books I couldn't sell video. And I'm just going to go through these more or less at random. I've got them stacked up here on the desk. But this first book is called Marcel Proust. And this is just a book about Marcel Proust, but it's a nice little primer. And, you know, it's small, but it's got a nice bibliography at the back. It's about 200 pages. You know, if you're a beginner to Marcel Proust, this is probably really good background information. I had pretty high hopes and ambitions for reading In Search of Lost Time this year, which I did not follow through on. Maybe I'll follow through on it next year. But anyway, I'm going to have this to guide me since I couldn't sell it. I also have 2 copies of this book. This is called The Fourth Hand by John Irving, which I haven't read yet. And I have 2 copies of it, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think I bought a copy from a friend as a favor. One of these has got a little bit of water damage. I suspect that's why this one wouldn't sell. This other one is a library copy. That's probably why it wouldn't sell. So that's too bad, but I've got an extra copy of The Fourth Hand here. And like I say, I haven't read these yet, but I'm a big fan of John Irving. I eventually hope to have read all of John Irving's novels, including that one. So I'm not disappointed that I still have copies of those, because I don't think I had a third copy that was any better than those 2. So it's cool that I still have them. Sometimes I've got books in my collection that I don't know why they're here. Sometimes people find out that I love books and they just give me books at random. Well, it never occurred to them that I actually have a method to my madness, and that I buy books that I want for some reason and books that I don't want for another one. But this one is a book called Agent X by Noah Boyd. And it's got a quote on the front cover by Patricia Cornwell. I don't know anything about this book, okay? But I know I couldn't sell it at Recycled Books and Records. They didn't want it. I don't know anything about it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I should probably find out something about it. This was a surprise to me, though. I've got a copy of Deep Work by Cal Newport. Cal Newport wrote a book called Digital Minimalism, which I thought was excellent. It was about our relationship with social media and how, you know, there are pros and cons to social media, but the cons are pretty significant when it comes to social media. Deep Work is all about how we work and how we can work more deeply, spend more time, and be more mindful about the work that we do in an era that seems to punish that kind of focused attention. It was an okay book. I mean, it didn't change my world or anything. Digital minimalism was more likely to do that. But I mean, this is almost in brand new shape, and I'm surprised that it didn't sell. But then again, it is more or less a self-help book, and I don't know what the market for self-help books is like at this particular store. I know Recycled Books tends to lean a little more literary than self-help. So I'm not incredibly surprised that I wasn't able to sell that one down there, but I was still a little disappointed because it was in such great shape. I thought they might buy it. Surely somebody around here wants it, right? I've also got this copy of F. Scott Fitzgerald, Babylon Revisited and Other Stories. And it's in pretty decent shape, but it looks like it might have a little water damage too. Yeah, it's got water damage. I'm not surprised that they didn't buy this one. Yeah, because of the water damage and stuff. I've got the complete F. Scott Fitzgerald short stories around here somewhere, so I don't need this for anything. So it was just a long shot that it would sell. I'm not too disappointed that that I still have it, but I'm not going to read it or use it for anything. So I've got a book here called The Barn, The Recent History of a Murder in Mississippi by Wright Thompson. This was supposed to be a buddy read with a friend of mine, but she never got started on it. I started and read about 50 pages, and while the subject matter is important and I probably should care about it, it just seemed kind of boring to me. The delivery was just kind of boring, which was too bad because there's a real story here, and the people who wrote it were really involved in the story. So I don't know what to tell you. But apparently I'm not the only one who doesn't want it, because they didn't want it at Recycled Books and Records either. Not too long ago, I watched a movie, and I want to say it was a movie about Dick Cheney, but it was based in part on this book, Cheney, The Untold Story of America's Most Powerful and Controversial Vice President. Okay, this is a nice book, and I want to say it's $40 or $50, but it's in perfect shape. It hadn't been read, and I'm not a Dick Cheney fan by any means, don't get me wrong. But I did think it would be interesting to learn a little bit more about him, just like it's interesting to learn more about Richard Nixon or whomever else, And I was surprised that they didn't buy that, but then I thought, well, maybe their politics affected whether or not they were willing to buy it. Maybe they thought I was an undercover Republican trying to sell them a book that was going to encourage Republicans. But I think Dick Cheney is one of the Republicans who probably doesn't agree very much with our current Republican regime. This is a book called The Siege by Stephen White. I know absolutely nothing about this either, except that I couldn't sell it. And then finally, I've got The Ghosts of Belfast by Stuart Neville, which apparently won some book prizes and stuff. This looks like one of those new books that ought to be trending and hot and happening and really ought to sell. I bought this because my daughter's boyfriend was reading it, and I was ambitious and thought I was going to read it too, and we were going to discuss it. I did not read it. We never discussed it. She's still dating him, though, so, the story doesn't have all that many unhappy endings. They're still together, so. Not that my reading has anything to do with her social life, but okay, so that's 3, 5, 8, 10. That's 10 books I couldn't sell out of my last book unhaul. So go figure. I don't know. I thought it was interesting what I couldn't sell. I thought you might think it was interesting too. I've got more videos coming up soon this week. It's the final week of May as I'm recording this. And, I've still got some horror mayhem reading to do. And I'm gearing up for a really, really big, exciting June on the Range, and I think everybody else is too. So we're going to be reading some Westerns. But before the end of the month, I've got a book called Cleat that's part of our book club, and then we're going to do some more talking about the sonnets in some of my videos this week too. So, I've got a lot to look forward to, and I hope you're looking forward to it too. Until then, I want to thank you for watching, and I want to encourage you to stay sexy and stay hydrated out there, because both of those things aren't necessarily the easiest things in the world to do, but they're worth it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.